Today's story isn't about battles fought on foreign soil or medals earned under fire. It's about a quiet war fought in the heart of a man who thought his days of heroism were long over, until one knock changed everything. The night was colder than usual in the Wyoming plains. A storm had rolled in, dragging with it a silence that wrapped around the ranch like a shroud. Inside the old wooden house, Jack Rayner, a retired Army Ranger turned rancher, sat alone beside the crackling fire. His loyal dog, Scout, dozed near the hearth, occasionally twitching at the sound of wind scraping the window panes. Jack leaned back in his creaky chair, eyes half closed, the memories of Afghanistan still lingering like ghosts behind his eyelids, the ones he could never quite bury. He thought tonight would be like any other. Quiet, uneventful, lonely, until the knock. It was faint at first, barely audible through the wind. Then it came again. 3 quick knocks, urgent, small, desperate. Jack frowned, setting his coffee mug aside. No one ever came to the ranch at this hour. Grabbing his rifle by habit, he opened the heavy oak door and froze. There, standing in the freezing rain, was a little girl. Couldn't have been more than 7 or 8. Barefoot, soaked to the bone, her hands trembling as she clutched a torn blanket. "Sir," she stammered, her lips quivering. They beat my mama. She's dying." For a moment, Jack didn't breathe. The storm howled behind her, tossing her hair across her face. "What did you say?" he asked, lowering his rifle, voice steady but sharp. The girl's eyes filled with tears. "Please help her. Please." Without another word, Jack grabbed his coat, scooped the girl into his arms, and bolted into the storm. Scout barked and followed close behind. The girl guided him with weak directions. "Down the road!" Past the big tree near the broken barn. When they arrived, Jack saw a dim light flickering inside what looked like an old trailer home. He stepped inside cautiously. The smell of alcohol, blood, and fear hit him like a wave. The place was a wreck. Shattered bottles on the floor, a broken table, and in the corner, a woman lying still, her face bruised, her breathing shallow. Jack knelt beside her, checking for a pulse. "She's alive," he muttered, relieved. He turned to the girl. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Lila," she whispered. "All right, Lila, we're going to help your mama, okay? But I need you to be brave for me." The girl nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. Jack scooped the woman into his arms. She was light, too light, and carried her through the storm, back to his truck. He wrapped her in his old field jacket and turned the heat up as he sped toward town. The nearest hospital was 40 minutes away. Every minute felt like an hour. The woman's breathing was faint, her skin pale. Jack gripped the steering wheel tighter. Memories of battlefield medevacs flooding back, the helplessness, the fear, the will to save a life when every second counted. "Stay with me," he muttered under his breath. "You're gonna make it." Lila sat beside him, hugging Scout. "You're not gonna let her die, right?" she asked softly. Jack looked at her through the rearview mirror, his voice calm but firm. "Not on my watch." At the hospital, nurses rushed to take the woman inside. Jack stayed with Lila, sitting quietly in the sterile waiting room, the hum of fluorescent lights overhead. Hours passed. The clock ticked like a heartbeat. Finally, a doctor emerged. "She's stable," he said. "It was close. She's got several broken ribs, a concussion, and dehydration. But she'll recover." Lila jumped up, hugging Jack so tight it nearly knocked the wind out of him. "You saved her!" she cried. Jack smiled faintly. "No, sweetheart, you did. You were brave enough to ask for help." Later, when the sheriff arrived, the truth came out. The woman, Maggie Turner, had been running from her abusive husband for months. He'd tracked her down to that trailer earlier that night. By the time he was done, he thought she was dead. But Lila had escaped through a window and ran barefoot through the storm, straight to the only house she could find. Jack's house. The sheriff assured them the man was in custody. But for Jack, the case didn't end there. He saw the fear in Maggie's eyes when she woke up. He saw the way Lila clung to her, terrified that someone might take her away. And something deep inside him, something that had been quiet since the army, stirred again. Over the next few days, Jack visited the hospital often, bringing food, blankets, and toys for Lila. At first, Maggie barely spoke. She kept her eyes down, her voice faint. "You don't have to thank me," Jack told her one day. "You just focus on getting better." But she looked up then, tears welling in her eyes. No one's ever helped us before. Everyone said we should have just stayed quiet, that it was our fault. Jack shook his head. Never your fault. Ever. He paused, then added quietly, I've seen evil before. In war. In men. In myself. But I've also seen what happens when good people stand up. That's what you and Lila did. You stood up. That was the first time she smiled. When Maggie was discharged, she had nowhere to go. Jack didn't hesitate. Stay at the ranch, he said simply. There's room. And Lila can help feed the horses. Maggie hesitated, but Lila's eyes lit up. Can we, Mama, please? And just like that, 3 broken souls began to heal under the same roof. The days passed quietly. Jack taught Lila how to saddle the horses, how to whistle for Scout, how to tell when a storm was coming by watching the sky. Maggie started cooking again, small meals at first, but each one filled the house with warmth it hadn't felt in years. For the first time in a long time, laughter echoed through those old wooden halls. Still, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that Maggie's past might not be done haunting them. He installed new locks, cameras, and kept his rifle loaded by the door, just in case. And one evening, just as the sun dipped below the horizon, his instincts were proven right. Lila was brushing the horses when Scout started barking, a deep, angry growl Jack hadn't heard in years. Then came the sound of tires on gravel, a black pickup truck. No plates. Jack's chest tightened. He stepped onto the porch, shotgun in hand. Maggie came running, eyes wide with fear. It's him, she whispered. He got out. Jack's jaw clenched. Get inside. Lock the doors. The man stepped out of the truck, tall and mean-looking, with a scar across his cheek. Where's my family? He shouted, his voice slurred. You think you can steal them from me, old man? Jack didn't flinch. You come one step closer and you'll regret it. The man sneered. You think I'm scared of some washed-up soldier? Jack didn't answer. He just stepped off the porch, every muscle in his body tensed, not from fear, but from focus. Walk away, Jack said quietly. You've already lost. The man laughed, then lunged forward. It all happened fast, too fast. The man pulled a knife, but Jack's reflexes were faster. One sharp twist, a hit to the arm, and the weapon clattered to the ground. Within seconds, the man was face down in the dirt, Jack's knee pressed into his back, shotgun at his neck. You hurt them again, Jack growled, and I swear, prison will be the least of your worries. By the time the sheriff arrived, the man was unconscious, zip-tied and bleeding from his pride more than his wounds. Lila ran out crying, throwing her arms around Jack's waist. You saved us again. Jack smiled softly, patting her hair. No, sweetheart. I just did what needed to be done. Weeks later, when the legal dust settled and Maggie's husband was gone for good, life slowly returned to peace. Maggie started working at the local diner. Lila went to school, her laugh brighter, her confidence returning. And Jack? He found something he didn't think he'd ever have again. Family. Every evening they'd sit on the porch watching the sunset. Lila would rest her head on Jack's shoulder and ask him about his army days, about courage, honor, and heroes. And Jack would always say the same thing. Heroes aren't the ones who fight wars, Lila. They're the ones who protect the people who can't. Months later, when the community learned about what had happened, the story spread, not because of the violence, but because of the kindness. People started calling Jack the Guardian of the Plains. He hated the title, but he couldn't deny one thing. That little girl, that single knock, had brought meaning back to a life that had been fading into silence. And that's the story. Friends, sometimes heroes don't wear uniforms. Sometimes they just answer the door when fate comes knocking. So if you ever see someone in need, don't turn away. You never know what battle they're fighting, or how your courage could save them. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. This is Kindness Trend, where stories of courage, compassion, and unseen heroes come to life.